Alrighty, I'm going to mute everybody, and you can all unmute yourself at any point if you'd like to do so. Now, one of the things that you're going to need tonight is a Haggadah. That is quite important because tonight we are going to be trying to talk about what we can do, what we can't do, and how we're going to do it. So make sure you've only got your Haggadah. Alrighty. Alrighty. So what we're going to be doing this evening is going through a couple of the questions that I get asked year by year, but this year I'm going to take one slightly different. So every year I get asked the question, what can we skip? This, I've got a bunch of people coming to my Haggadah, to my Seder, and they are, they're not that involved, and they don't really like it, and they start fooling around. And how can I do it in a way that is the most meaningful, without, not wanting to cut too many corners, but cut it enough. Sorry, let me just try to do this in a way. There you go. Try to do this in a way that it will be both meaningful and not detract too much from those who are not interested. Now, this year, I think things are going to be very different. Now, I'm going to say this. I said this in my drosha on Friday night. I said this in the email that went out. And apparently, it's still not clear enough. So I'm just going to say it as clear as I can say it. And that is that no one should be going anywhere or having anyone. Now, anyone means anyone that does not live in your house should not be coming to your Seder. It doesn't matter how sad they will be, whether it be very old people or young children that are living out of home. No one should be traveling. That is the recommendation that is being given to us by the medical professionals, by Professor Marshall Plitt, by Dr. Gavin Marks, by Dr. Dan Zalou for our medical advisory team. All three of them agree wholeheartedly. No one should be coming and going. So I understand that is difficult, and it's just to use a bit of a Torah and psychology together, is that if we love those that we are having at the Seder, if you really love them, you will not have them at your Seder. That's how strong we have to take this. If you really love them, don't have them at the Seder. It is a once-off year. So the challenge this year is going to be one that is completely different. And the challenge is now, how do we make a Seder somehow meaningful? Because I've only got, it's my husband, my wife, and myself. Maybe we've got a bit of a bigger family. We've got a few kids at home. And how do we, it's hard. We haven't had the preparation. There's not the tumult. There's not the excitement that you have in every other year. We don't know all the songs, and it's ready to do 2 nights of Seder. It's going to be next to impossible to make it anything other than meaningless. So how are we going to do that? So we're going to do a few questions, which I put on the flyer. So how do we, we're going to deal with the Zoom question. How do I run a Seder by myself? How do I engage my kids? How can I motivate myself? And can I skip parts of the Haggadah? Those were the 4 main questions that we said we would deal with this evening. So let's go through them one by one. What can you do with Zoom and what can you not do with Zoom? So every day I get someone sending me an article from the Jerusalem Post or something similar saying that that rabbis come and say Zoom can be done for the Seder. And it's an article that everyone gets very, very excited. Now, interesting enough, most of the people that have sent it to me, my guess is they're not that perturbed about the fact that the rabbis say that you can use Zoom at the Seder, because these are the kind of people who probably would use Zoom anyway at the Seder. Even if the rabbis didn't say they were allowed to do it. But even for those who are observant and would never contemplate using technology at the Seder, one has to be unequivocal in this particular regard, and that is that the only way that halachically we could allow somebody to use technology at the Seder would be in the event that the person who is alone is really in peril. That either their mental health is so fragile, or alternatively, you need to consistently check on them because of their physical health, and that is why you got to do it. And if that is the case, that you are really concerned about their physical and mental health, then not only do you not need to leave the Zoom on ahead of time, you can pick up the phone and call them, because as we know, that pikuach nefesh, to save a life, overrules every single mitzvah in the Torah. So therefore, if you have real concerns that somebody is in risk, so then definitely we should, you can do it. The case of putting the Zoom on before and letting it go into the Seder, that you cannot do. But that being said, one has to be able to appreciate that there are parts of the Seder that are very emotional and very beautiful, but not necessarily halachically necessary, or at least it doesn't matter if you do them on the Seder night. So let's just go through a little bit of a timeline to understand exactly what's going on at which stage. Apologies. Okay. So when we start off, normally we would have shul at 6 o'clock on first night Pesach. We'll get home around 6:30, 6:45. The Seder starts at 7, and off we go. This year, when are we going to start it? So the halacha is that your Seder needs to start at night time. It needs to start because it is called a Leil Shimurim. It is a night of guarding, and therefore it has to be night time. So when you make Kiddush, it has to be at night. Now, what time is night time now? It's about 20 past 6. So that's when your Seder should start, at about 20 past 6. Candle lighting is will be about 5:25. And the time between 5:25 and 6:15 is when we would daven Mincha, Mariv, and then go into the Seder. So from 5:25 onwards, there should be no Zoom. And that is when the festival of Pesach is going to begin. That being said, beforehand, before 5:25, there is so much that can be done that can give you as best an experience as possible within the context of sharing it with your family over the Zoom or Skype, whatever the case might be. So, for example, my guess is the key things you want to share with your families are not eating matzah and maror and the boiled egg or the chrain or whatever, or the charoset. That's not really the experience. It's the experience of singing certain songs, especially if you've got little children or grandchildren, being able to hear Manish Tanan, Avadim Yinu, and parts of the 10 plagues. So there is almost no part of the Haggadah that you cannot do before 5:25. So if you want to say, okay, we're going to get together, we're all going to be dressed up in our Yontif clothes at 4:30, 4:45. We're going to sit down, and we're going to put the camera around us, and we're going to sing. We're going to do that. Then we're going to lift up the matzah and say, halach ma'anya. And then we're going to go sing Manish Tana, and we're going to do the 4 sons, and we're going to dip the wine because of the 10 plagues. We're going to sing Dayenu, and we're going to sing Chad Gadia, and we're going to go through the entire Haggadah, at least the entire verbal part of the Haggadah. There is no problem whatsoever to do that. So it's not like blowing the shofar on a Wednesday, when Rosh Hashanah falls on the Friday. There's no issue with doing it. However, that being said, it's not the mitzvah of the Chag. The mitzvah of the Chag is at the night of the Seder. There are certain parts to be said, and we'll go a little bit later in the Shira to say which parts need to be said and which parts can be left out. But that being said, is that to be able to do all the stuff beforehand, it's not sacrilege because they're not blessings. So you're not going to make kiddush. You're not going to drink any cups of wine. You're not going to eat any matzah or maror or charoset. None of that's going to happen. That will all happen after 6:15. But before 5:25, you can get everybody together and you can enjoy the Seder with all your family and try as best as you can to make it whatever you can make it. So that is that's the way that Zoom can be beneficial. Whether that works for you or not, each family according to their own. But definitely from a halachic point of view, there's no problem with reciting the Seder. At the end of the day, the vast majority of the Haggadah we've spoken over the last few weeks is really just different writings of the rabbis trying to bring different aspects of the Egyptian story to the forefront of our consciousness, but they're not mitzvot per se. So talking about the 5 rabbis in Bnei Brak arguing about what all the days of your life, the days of your life, all the days of your life include the night. So that's not a mitzvah to say that. So saying it is great and it's very important, but it's not a mitzvah. So you want to say that beforehand, that's not a problem. So ideally what would happen is you would do that up until 5:25. At 5:25, you would light your yontif candles, you would daven mincha, mariv, and at 6:15, you would now start with the proper Seder. That would just be with you and whoever's in your home. And then you would start with Kiddush, and now you drink the first cup of wine. And ideally, you would then redo all the Haggadah, even the parts that you said earlier with the grandchildren or the grandparents, you would say them all again. Ideally. Okay? So that's let's say the first prize that how we would frame this aspect of the Haggadah. Okay. So I'm going to just stop there for a second. Everyone, I think, is on mute. If you would like to ask a question, please unmute yourself and ask a question. I see someone's put some stuff in the chat here. Hold on a sec. Okay. Okay. So we're allowed to notice.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Sure. Just identify yourself because I can't always see who you are.
Linda Ben Menashe.
Hi, Linda.
We're doing a Seder with people from various time zones around the world, and we don't want to make it too long because of those time zones and people's availability. What are elements of the Seder that we can leave out?
Okay, so that's going to be the last part of the shir. So we'll definitely get there. So if you can't wait until the end, I'll send you the recording. But we will get to that question. Now, I'm going to pretend that the first part of your question you didn't say. Okay?
Correct.
All right. So I'm going to pretend I didn't hear the different time zones. Because truth be told, I'm not sure how you could do in different time zones because it's either not going to be Pesach somewhere. I just don't know how physically it's possible that it will all be the night of Pesach everywhere.
It won't be.
Okay, so I'll answer the second part of your question, which is, are there parts of the Haggadah we can leave out? And the answer is yes, and we will get to that a little bit later. Are there any questions on just the Zoom element that I've mentioned so far? Okay, all right. So now the next question of saying the Seder by themselves. So I just want to read something that a colleague of mine wrote. Give me 2 secs. I thought it was actually quite, not so much profound as just quite wise. Give me a second. Okay. So I'm going to have to just move my camera for a second. Okay. So this is a rabbi from New York, and he says as follows. He says, preparation. Instead of thinking about the people you're not going to be with or with the place you're not traveling to, think about how you're going to have an opportunity to experience the Seder in a new way and plan to make it as beautiful and as fun as possible in whatever way makes you happy. Make the table beautiful. Besides being halachically correct, it should feel special. Says, okay, so the most important thing is to say the Seder out loud. Now, I don't mean at the top of your voice, but rather that you shouldn't mutter or skip or just scan over with your eyes. You should say every word. Sing every song, even multiple songs, multiple times if you know different tunes. As you're reading the Haggadah, you might find things that you thought about, that you haven't thought about in years because you were rushing through to keep up with the others. Now's the time to think about them, to pull out the different books and teachings that you might have prepared. You can stop and learn something new about it. No one is rushing you. Maybe take the time and spill in the wine during the recitation of the plagues. Think about what each one must have been like as opposed to the one that we're living through currently. Thank Hashem that you all can be grateful. Thank Hashem for that we can be grateful for and pray for those that are sick. Okay, so there's I thought there was some nice ideas that he brought over there. Number one is that we need to start looking at this Pesach rather than it being a real, rather than it being a real chore this year, which I think in many cases people are viewing that this year's Pesach is going to be terrible because all our family aren't here and we are missing all the things that we usually like. But it's a great opportunity to say it's going to be a different Pesach. There's no question it's going to be a different Pesach. There's an opportunity to actually open the book and read what it's about. This is, in all of Jewish literature, there is no book around that has more commentaries written on it than the Haggadah. Every year, tens, if not hundreds of Haggadot are released with new insights and new interpretations that come. And it's a profound opportunity to try to connect to a book that historically we've never connected to. There's so much stories in here. And there's so much to be grateful for that you have people around you that, next year we hope it's not like this again, but this year is also an opportunity to do something different. I was on a conference call with a bunch of colleagues in America the other day. And one of the rabbis said that he feels a bit guilty because, on the one hand, there's you're not having all the people that you have every year, and there are a lot of people who buy themselves. He said, but on the other hand, it's actually quite nice that I've just got my family. And I know that for some people, that doesn't really help because maybe they're the ones who are going to be by themselves. But it's an opportunity that, any way we look at it, it's an opportunity. Dr. Pelkovitz, who spoke on Wednesday night, has a famous line, which is that the Japanese symbol for crisis is the same Japanese symbol for opportunity. That we really have this opportunity now to be able to engage with the night of Pesach in a way that we've never done it before. Every year I hear people saying, it's all about the kids, all about the kids. So they put decorations on the tables and they do skits and they jump up and down. You've got to get the kids very excited. And that's great. But invariably, the only thing the parents get out of that is nachas at best. They don't learn anything. I mean, it's one of the, I can't remember who says this, but the idea is that was some educators said if you keep doing the same thing at the same time, you're going to keep getting the same results. So is your Pesach Seder this year, how different is it to last year's Pesach Seder? As far as when I open my Seder, my Haggadah, is it a different experience to my experience last year? Does it mean more to me because I've learned more about it? Or is it just the same words I've been reading year in, year out? There's very little meaning behind it. So every year we go to, I get the question every year around Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Rabbi, the Seder means nothing to me. I don't understand what's happening. So I said, well, when was the last time you opened the Seder? So the answer is, well, last year. So, I mean, try to do anything like that. Try any aspect of life that you open a book once a year. You don't understand it. You don't put any effort into it. And then somehow magically it's going to make sense the next year. It's not going to work. But this year you have no distractions whatsoever. This year you can actually engage the book. So go and buy a commentary. Go download commentaries. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs has phenomenal stuff on the Haggadah. You can download it, print it up, read it at the Seder, learn more about it. I imagine that if I'll go through most people on this call and I say to them, all right, explain to me why we wash our hands without making a bracha before the karpas, the urchats. Why do we do the urchats? My guess is most people don't know why we do urchats. Why do we eat karpas? Because that's what we do. What a golden opportunity to finally learn that you have no distractions. You're not cooking for hundreds of people. You're not being entertained at other people. You're not sitting with all the social awkwardness or social pressures that there are. You can just sit and enjoy it. So it is difficult. It is, challenging, but it is an unbelievable opportunity that post this whole experience, we'll walk away. Maybe we won't say that we're glad it's happened, because God forbid we should say that. But at least we can say that it happened and we are greater as a result of it. That this Pesach was unlike any other Pesach. And albeit I never want to have another Pesach like this again, I learned so much that next year when I have my children and grandchildren and whoever at the Seder, I've got so much more richness to appreciate with this whole Seder, because I spent last year in my isolation learning about it and appreciating what it meant. So you go through the Haggadah and Min. Second thing says is sing the songs. So most of us know some songs, and most of us know parts of some songs. So we know that Avadima Yinu, Ayinu, and probably not much more than that. And Dayenu we know, and that's it. And Manishtana, I hope we go beyond Chametz or Matzah, and maybe there's Vihisha, but we don't know the whole song. So you still got 3-4 days to be able to go online. There's an unbelievable amount of resources to learn the songs and sing a few songs. It should be a phenomenal opportunity to learn the songs that now there's so many more songs that you can sing and you can appreciate. Go through the Four Sons. Like the Four Sons is a phenomenal, idea. Like when we go to the Four Sons, so there's always, this is like sketch time. So you get 4 different people to pretend to be the son. And the reality is, what are the 4 sons? Is that 4 times in the Torah, there's a discussion between a parent and a child. One, the child says, what are these chukim mishpatim? What are all these laws that Lord gave us? And others, what is this service to you? And the other says, what is this? And the other one doesn't say anything. You just say to him, and you should tell your son on that day, saying. And the rabbis sort of worked those 4 sons in the Torah into 4 personality types. But what makes one wicked? What makes one wise? Why is it wise, wicked? Why shouldn't it be righteous and wicked, or wise and stupid? And then simple. Is simple good or bad? Simple, the word tam can mean something quite pure. Yaakov was called a tam. So he was called simple. But simple doesn't necessarily mean lack of intelligence. It means the ability to see things in a very simple way, a simple, pure way, an innocent way also. So there are lots of different elements of the Seder that, I would say, let's not skip over them. And let's not miss those opportunities. And for those, who are perhaps connecting with people overseas and doing it in that way, so you can do that as well. But when you have, when it's 6:30 p.m. in Australia, you're going to go through the Haggadah and you're going to make meaning out of the Haggadah. All right. So that is the second thing of how do we make, I hope it's helpful, but how do we make the Haggadah make thing? Okay, next one. So how does one engage kids? So if you're waiting to engage your kids, and I'm assuming, for the younger families, or people who have younger kids, so how do you engage your kids? So it's making the Haggadah relevant to them. So no matter how old your kids are, if your kids are 5, 10, or 30, or 20s, it's what does this mean to me? And how can I transform it? So first and foremost, you have to prepare. If you want the Haggadah, the Seder to mean something, you have to prepare. It's not enough to rock up on the day and hope that some bolt of inspiration is going to hit you. You need to prepare ideas. You need to prepare, maybe for younger ones, games. You need to be able to, prepare that you have something to give. And on the flip side is you need to give them an opportunity for them to prepare. That the children shouldn't be passive recipients of the Haggadah. They should really be individuals who are participating in the transmission. Rav Soloveitchik used to talk about the fact that the Leila Seder is the greatest night of the Jewish year. Because ultimately, what is the goal? The goal is that we as the parents or the masters of the Seder are handing over our tradition. The amount of parents that I've had discussions with kids who are not following, in the footsteps of the parents. They're less observant, they're not interested, they don't want to be a part. It comes down to that Leila Seder is the night that should be filled with, I am so proud and passionate of our heritage. I'm so in love with being Jewish that I would want to share that with you. And that's what the Leila Seder is supposed to be. It's not preaching. It's not do this, eat this, you have to dip. You didn't dip it, you should dip it in more, you should shake it off. It's not about the ritual. There's so much ritual at the Seder, but it's not about the ritual. It's about being passionate. It's about role modeling, being proud about being Jewish. It's about role modeling that what we are doing has meaning, it has purpose. That this year, unlike every other year in our history, sits possibly, sorry, I take that back. It has happened before, but not often can it happen, it would say. that, like our forefathers in the land of Egypt, we too are going to be housebound on Leila Seder. And we cannot leave our homes just as them in the first time in Egypt. They couldn't leave their home because the angel of death was passing over the homes. And we too were huddled in our home at our Seder, saying, Hashem, please spare us from the Magefah, please spare us from the plague that is afflicting this nation. And we are doing exactly the same as our forefathers had. It's an incredibly powerful metaphor or powerful image of the fact that we are reliving so much of that which they had. So that's, if you want to engage the kids, better use that kids, we are doing what they did in Egypt. I don't know, put some red paint on the doors. Say like we couldn't go out. See, we can't go out because there's the coronavirus out there. And there was a virus that hit Egypt. And so we are there again. And every element of the Seder is you are living it, you are not getting through it. The Haggadah as a kid, which I'm sure, the Haggadah and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is exactly the same. You'd start there and you'd say, how many more pages until we can eat? So it says 50 more pages, and you'd roll your eyes and you think, oh, hold on a second. Half of them are in English, or half of them in Hebrew. So it means only 25 pages. Baruch Hashem, just knocked out half the Haggadah in one foul swoop. And then you just rush through it. Let me just get through it as if it's like a marathon. You just want to finish the race. But the goal is not to finish. The goal is to have the experience. And if your goal is to get through it, and yes, there are times where we can skip and times where we need to skip. But what a chaval when the experience is one started up, it's like, what's the minimum I can do to get out of this? I'm not sure that's the right decision. The right way to look at it. The way of looking at it should be, I want to make meaning out of all of this, but things are beyond my control and I can't do all of it. I'm time restrained. I have other pressures, and now I need to be able to minimize it for some other reason. What can I minimize? Okay, so that's how to engage kids. Okay, how can I motivate myself? Similarly, even if you are by yourself, do some preparation. And by preparation, that might not necessarily mean reading up on everything, but at least printing up stuff. Go get books, download books. There is so much resources on the Haggadah. Listen to Shiurim that you can the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, in the Ethics of the Father says, the Fum Sa'ara Agra, which means according to the effort is the reward. So if you want the reward, and you want to be able to enjoy the Seder in as much as you can in this year, so it's only going to be based on the input that you put in. If you're waiting for the night to come and somehow then you're going to decide, okay, now I bought all these books and I'm going to read through it. So chances are you're going to get to the soup with matzah balls, and you're going to lose a lot of interest. You've got to put in the effort. All right. So before we go into the breaking up the Haggadah, are there any questions up until now on those topics? Going once, I have a question here. Okay. All right, no questions? Oh, sorry. Okay. Going. All right. So now we're going to go on to the final question is, what of the Seder is absolutely crucial and what is not? So if you open up a Haggadah, so you've got the Kiddush. So the 4 cups of wine are crucial in the order that they have. So you first have the cups of wine, the urchatz, you wash your hands, no bracha, karpas, you eat the vegetable, dipped in salt water, yachatz, break the middle matzah, put half of the afikomen, and now we start the magid. Now, believe it or not, a lot of the stuff that we're going to skip is not going to be necessarily stuff you want to skip, but it's the stuff that is important is not necessarily stuff we enjoy. So Manishtana is important. Why is Manishtana important? Because the rabbis tell us that it has to be a question and answer format. The whole goal of the Seder is to be questions and answers. So the Manishtana comes from the Talmud. It is a direct quote from the Talmud. Then the Gemara brings 2 opinions about the idea that matchilim begnut, that you should start the Seder when the Jews are at their lowest and end on a triumphant note. So there's a dispute between two rabbis in the Talmud about what is it. Is it talking about the physical subjugation, that we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt and now we got out? Or is it a spiritual concept, and it starts with our forefathers were idol worshippers? So we do both of them. So start off the Manishana is Avadimayinu, and then we go from Avadimayinu. You do not need to do the story of the rabbis in Bnei Brak. Okay, that part is not necessary. You can skip that. You can skip the four sons. The four sons is very interesting, but it is not. It's not a crucial part of the Haggadah. I'm hoping people are writing lines and whatnot. Next, we go on to, it says, Yachomi Rosh Chodesh. You might have thought you can skip that part, Rosh Chodesh. Then, our forefathers were idol worshippers. That is the second. So I said the first part of starting in disgrace was Avadimayinu. The second opinion is our forefathers were idol worshippers. So the paragraph on our forefathers were idol worshippers, we should keep. Okay? The same with Baruch Shomer Haftachto. You know, this is
Hi, Josh. How are you?
Sorry.
You all done?
Oh, sorry about that. So Baruch Shomer Haftachto. Blessed is he who guards his promise. So that can be skipped. Then V'hisha Amda can be skipped. Okay, so now those parts, I understand that people might sing those things, but those parts are not crucial parts of the Haggadah. The next part of the Haggadah that one needs to keep is that say ulamad, go and learn what Laban the Aramean sought to do to our forefathers. So what this part of the Haggadah is, this is actually the core of the Haggadah. And that is that there are 4 verses that come in the book of Devarim in the story. So just to give you a little bit of context, when Bnei Israel, when we used to go to the temple on Shavuot and bring our bikurim, our first fruits, so we would bring them up and we would offer them to the Kohen, and then we would make a declaration to the Kohen. And that declaration was, Arami or Veravi, our forefather was a wandering Aramean, and he went down to Egypt, and there he went in small number to sojourn, and they became prosperous and mighty. And then the Egyptians ill-treated us and had heavy bondage upon us. And we cried out to Hashem, and Hashem heard our cries and our pleas. And then God took us out with that mighty hand and outstretched arm. Okay, that's what we say when we give up Bikurim. When the Bala Haggadah, when the men of the Talmud came to write the Haggadah, they wanted to try to take the whole Egyptian story and summarize it into the simplest, most verses. We could have just started off, well, read the beginning of the first, 6 to 8 chapters of the book of Exodus. That's the story, right? So you start in the chapter 1 with Pharaoh, and then chapter 2, Moses is born, and then chapter 3 and chapter 4, and you just go all the way until the splitting of the Red Sea. So that would have, but it would have been incredibly long, and might not have understood it. So what the rabbis did is they took this story, this declaration that was made at the time when we bought our first fruits, and said that you need to elaborate upon that declaration. So you take the 4 verses, and you literally dissect each word in that verse. And so it says, all right, Arami of Aravi. So an Aramean sought to destroy my forefather. That was Laban. And we went down to Egypt. We were forced to go down. We didn't want to go down. We were forced to go down. Why we were forced to go down? Because there was the famine. We had to go down. But we went via Garsha. We went there to sojourn. We went there temporarily. We didn't go there intentionally. So in all 4 of these verses, each word is pregnant with meaning that tells you how we got to Egypt. Once we got there, we became prosperous and mighty, and we started, it says we became very wealthy and very successful. And then what happens is the Egyptians said, no, let's get rid of them. And that's the 3rd verse. The Egyptians ill-treated us, and it tells us, what does that mean? Then Pharaoh said, let us deal wisely with them, lest they increase and they take over. And then they oppressed us and they did all these things to us, and then we cried out to Hashem, and Hashem heard our cry. So these 4 verses that go all the way until to the 10 plagues, because it ends with Davar Acher B'yad Chazakah, with the mighty hand, the outstretched arm, and great signs and wonders. Each of those mean 2. Great mighty hand, that's 2 plagues. There's outstretched arm, that's 2 plagues. Great wonders, that's 2 plagues, and signs and wonders is another two, and that's 10 plagues. And these are the 10 plagues that God brought in Egypt, that is crucial. Okay? So that part is, now that is going to be the longest part of the Haggadah. But you don't have to, depending who you're with. But the idea is to show, how deep and pregnant the words of the Torah are. So it says one word, but you can draw out that word. I had a question. I'm not the Haggadah, and I'm not I'm not the Torah, but apparently people read into my words the same way as the rabbis of the Talmud read into the Torah. So I sent out a letter on Friday, and the letter was quite clear. It says, please do not host anyone. So someone said to me, but host, I'm only having a relative, and you don't host relatives. Relatives you host guests that are not relatives. So I had to tell the individual that no, you host relatives as well. But the whole idea is that you can read into any word that you say. It's like the guy, Yeshiva Bochrim, that was swimming at the beach, and the lifeguard screams at him. And he says, what are you doing? Can't you see the sign? It says, danger, no swimming. So the Yeshiva Bochrim says, well, no, is that what it says? I misread it. He says, well, how do you read it? It says, it was a question. It was like, danger? No, swimming. So that's how people read it. So if you can read that, and that's what lawyers' jobs are, to read a contract, and each word is pregnant with meaning, so that we do the same thing with those 4 verses that tell the whole story of Egypt. So that takes us to now the 10 plagues. So after the 10 plagues, you can skip there were 10 plagues in Egypt and 50 plagues at the sea, and then there were 50 plagues in Egypt and 200 plagues at the sea, or 250 plagues at the sea. You can skip that whole part. That is Medrash. And the Medrash just is coming to show how many miracles, and every time we can appreciate something from Hashem. So it's a greater and greater miracle. So that's what we do over here, but there's no obligation to. Okay, so you can skip that whole part, which means you can also skip Dayenu. Now, Dayenu is very nice, don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful song and very important, and it is the idea of being satisfied with what you got. But as far as the core part of the Haggadah, you can skip it. It's not a necessary part of the Haggadah. So you can skip the Haggadah. But then we get to Rabban Gamliel, and this is now the third and final part that is necessary for the Haggadah part of the Seder. And that is that anyone who says it explicitly. Rabban Gamliel used to say, whoever has not mentioned these 3 things at the Seder has not fulfilled their obligation. Those are Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Why do we eat the Pesach? Why did we eat the Pesach? Why do we eat Matzah? And why do we eat Maror? So those are the 3 things of the Seder. Then so that technically, ends the Haggadah, the Haggadah part of it, because then it says, V'chol v'dor, person, every generation, people have to look at themselves that they went out of Egypt, and now let us sing a new song. And now we go into the next part of the Seder. So that's the minimized version of the Haggadah. But the Haggadah is just that we're going from the beginning of the song. We say, Kalesh Ulchatz, Kapars Yachatz, Magid. So that's the Magid part of the Seder. But now we're going into the Hallel. So the Hallel is divided up into 2 parts. We start, say, with Haluka Avdei Hashem and B'tzei Tisro Mitzrayim, which we say before the meal, and then the rest of the Hallel that we say after benching. That cannot be left out. That is part of the this unique experience that we say Hallel at a meal, and we say it at night. We never say Hallel at night, but here we say it at night and we say it at the meal. So those parts shouldn't be skipped. So we say the first 2 things of Hallel, we make the blessing, and then we drink the second cup of wine. Now we're going to go into the eating. So we wash our hands, and we go into the matzah. So how much matzah does a person have to eat? So I'm using machine. If you use handmade matzah, you can ask me afterwards. But if you use machine-made matzah, it really depends on, there are 3 main approaches. So the most stringent approach is that for the mitzvah of matzah, you need to eat about 3/4 of a sheet of matzah. Okay? So it's not just a piece, you actually need 3/4 of a square of matzah. If that is just too much, so then half a sheet should be sufficient. If it is difficult for you to do so, now difficult means that you can do it and it's not dangerous and it will not make you ill. It's just difficult. So then you can eat about 1/3 of a piece of matzah. If you're like, just say you are gluten intolerant, so do not make yourself ill. You are exempt from eating matzah. Now, just parenthetically, because it's important to think, is that you can get gluten-free matzah. Most gluten-free matzah is not matzah. It might look like matzah. It may taste like matzah, but it is not matzah because it invariably is made either with potato starch and tapioca starch, both of which cannot ever become chametz and therefore cannot ever be matzah. So therefore, if you want to eat it, there's no problem with eating it, but you cannot make the bracha of hamotzi and al-chilat matzah on that matzah. So if you're a person who's, because you are lactose intolerant, you cannot, not lactose, because you're gluten intolerant, you cannot eat matzah, so you're exempt from the mitzvah, as opposed to forcing it. So again, if you can, 3/4. If it is really hard for you, half, and if it's just near impossible for you, 1/3, and if it makes you ill, no matzah. Then we go to the maror. So the maror over here is really going to be lettuce. So it's, people try to use romaine lettuce or cos lettuce, or if nothing else, I suppose you can use any other form of lettuce, what we call chazeret. So this should similarly be quite a significant piece. It should be it's also about 2/3 of a sheet of matzah as far as, not volume, but as far as surface area goes. So it's quite a lot of the maror. Maror is not meant to be harif. It's supposed to be bitter. Bitterness is not burning. That doesn't. It's not supposed to burn your sinuses. So people who like to use horseradish, so the amount of horseradish you'd eat is probably about a shot glass worth of horseradish. I don't do that. If people want to put horseradish along with the lettuce, that's fine and good. But what you cannot use is chrein. So when I say chrein, I mean the red stuff that you get. And the reason is that chrein is actually mixed in with, it is horseradish based, but it's mixed in with a lot of other things, beetroot juice, often sugar and the like. And the blessing that needs to be made on the maror is something that would take a blessing or break Kriyadama. And this wouldn't take a break Kriyadama because it's got all these other additives in it. So it can be plain lettuce or horseradish, but about 2/3 also of a sheet of matzah. Then if you haven't had enough yet, we go into the korech, and this is the Hillel sandwich. Now the Hillel sandwich is a rabbinic enactment. So the first two, matzah is a Torah mitzvah, maror is rabbinic. Korech, the Hillel sandwich, is also rabbinic. So what you do is you can have half a piece of matzah if you're okay with it. If not, just 1/3 piece of matzah and similar sizes worth of maror for that. So you are currently eating on the upper side about a 1 1/4 piece of matzah so far, and about 1 and a bit surface area of maror so far. So that is the korech. Then you go into the shulchan aruch, you eat your meal, safun. You do not have to hard afikomen, especially if you're by yourself or you and your partner. It's unlikely that you'll be hiding the afikomen, but you don't have to hide the afikomen. But the eating of the afikomen is going to take on the same halachas as the first matzah. So if you can, another 3/4 of a piece of matzah, or half, or 1/3. So it is that. Now, just interestingly enough, if you go to the word afikomen, so it's a rabbinic play on words. Because if you look to the question that the wise son asks, just go back. So what does the wise son say? He says, what are these laws and statutes that God has commanded you? And you should tell him the laws of Passover, that you can't conclude, you can't have after the Passover sacrifice afikomen. So if you say, so what do you mean? So after the Pesach, you can't have afikomen. So what does that mean? So afikomen in Aramaic means dessert. And you're not allowed to have dessert after the Pesach offering. Okay, that's what it says over here. When you say, well, hold on a second. So what are we doing? We have the afikomen. So the reason we have the afikomen, why the last piece of matzah is called the afikomen, is because it has to be the last thing we taste is the Pesach offering. We don't have a Pesach offering. So what do we eat? We eat matzah. So what do we call the matzah? We call the matzah afikomen, meaning dessert. So yes, we might have had our fruit salad and our pavlova beforehand, but dessert is historically the last thing you eat. So what's the last thing you eat? Is the matzah to commemorate the Passover sacrifice. And so what do we call that last piece of matzah? We call it dessert, and that's why it's called afikomen. Okay, so that's the history behind the afikomen, and we're going to eat the requisite amount. Then we bench now on the third cup of wine, drink the third cup of wine, fill up the fourth cup of wine, and we finish hallel. Now hallel, again, should be sung as much as possible to go through as much as you can. This is called hallel hagadol. It is the only time during the year that we do hallel hagadol, and that includes different elements that we would say on Shabbos morning in shul. So Hodul Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chasdo, nishmat kol chai, and shochenad, and yishtabach. These are actually parts of the shachrit service on a regular Shabbat. But that makes hallel hagadol, and then we make the last, on finishing the hallel, we make the last blessing on a cup of wine, and that finishes the Passover Seder. Then the last part that is the custom is to sing the different songs. So different songs are beautiful if you don't know the words. My guess is some of them at least we would know. But it's an important part of the Seder because each of those songs, if you haven't, just to give you a bit of an insight, so the song Chag Gadya, according to the Vilna Gaon, is a story of Jewish history. That the Chag Gadya, what it says, our father bought a kid for 2 zuzim. So the Vilna Gaon talks about that the kid is Joseph, and Joseph was sold down to by the cat. The cat came and ate the ram. So what's the cat? The cat is Egypt, and then the dog, and then the dog was Pharaoh, the cat was the jealousy of the brothers, and the dog was Pharaoh, and then the stick that hits the dog was Moshe's staff, and it's all a sort of history. And I read something beautiful. I heard Rabbi Sachs. He said on the Haggadah this year, it says, may we please end our Seders this year with the bracha, with the last line that comes in the Haggadah. And what is the last line of the entire evening? And Hashem came and killed the angel of death. It says, and that should be the last bracha. And Hashem should come and destroy this angel of death that is passing over the world at the moment. And so that's how the Haggadah ends and should finish. So I hope that made sense. I wish everybody, enormous amount of siyata dishmaya, of divine help in making your Seders uniquely meaningful this year. And the next year, when we go back to it, our Seders are enriched by the wisdom that we taught ourselves and we learn from one another during these incredibly trying times. So I will now open up to broader questions. I'm happy to open to any questions. Let's first start off. Unmute yourself if you have any questions, but we'll keep questions initially on the topic this evening, and then we can move on to questions regarding broader Pesach issues. So yes, anybody. Okay, going to be a slow night of questions. All right. Well, anyone? You can write your question to me if you'd prefer it. All right. So if there are no questions, by all means, please reach out, and you can message me directly if you would like, if you have any other questions. But thank you for joining me this evening. For those who've missed this, I will post it online and put the link on, send it on the email earlier this week. I wish you all a Chag Kasher v'Sameach, as well as a one that is safe. You should all just take a lot of time to just appreciate the blessings that we have, and to be able to make this as meaningful as possible. And Hashem should give us help, and Hashem should really take away this terrible phenomenon that is happening at the moment. I wish you a Chag Sameach.